Hello and welcome to another edition of the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast, episode number 14, countdown to 1,000. You're only 986 episodes away. And joining me as always is the man taking this journey with me, the journey to 1,000 and beyond. Renowned hitting instructor, professional evaluator, my former coach, friend, and co-host back in his Denver house, his lovely home, Jake Epstein. Jake, how are you? Good morning.
Good morning to you. I feel like I'm going to have to be Buzz Lightyear going to our Infinity and Beyond episodes.
Yeah, well, I agree.
Yeah, I'll put my pack on. Let's get ready to roll.
1,000. We're getting there.
That's it. 1 inch at a time.
I saw a picture. I took this picture on my phone earlier in the week. It was from baseball, not baseball quotes, baseballer, whatever it is on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And I took this picture and I was curious. It's of a player who I think maybe your dad may have played with. His name, and I want to say it, I hope I'm not saying it wrong, Ted Kluszewski. Do you remember that name? Ted Kluszewski.
Yeah.
Left-handed batter, I'm guessing, for Cincinnati. That's the picture that I see here. Well, I'm guessing he played with your dad, and I didn't know this. I thought this would be interesting to bring up. Only 5 players in history of baseball have hit 40-plus home runs in a season while striking out 40 times or less. Mel Ott, Lou Gehrig, Johnny Mize, Joe Dimaggio, and Ted Kluszewski. They've all accomplished that feat. Kluszewski is the only one to do it more than once. He did it 3 years in a row in 53, 54, and 55. There's your random stat of the show today.
Unbelievable. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. If I remember him or the picture you're thinking of, he was a big dude.
Yes.
I don't even think he wore sleeves. Didn't he, wasn't it with the Reds that when they, had the sleeveless jerseys?
Yes.
Yeah. I think he was older than my dad.
Okay. I thought he was.
Which is saying something. My dad will truly appreciate that someone that plays baseball is older than him. He likes to hear that. He didn't think that was possible. But I think he may have been 10 years or so before my dad. Maybe not quite that much.
By the way, earlier in the week, I saw, and we were recording this on a Saturday morning, but I saw that it was the anniversary of Joe Dimaggio hitting in his 56th consecutive game earlier in the week. Do you feel that record will ever be broken? His record of that longest
no
streak?
Chance. That record is so safe, in my opinion.
So no hitter will. So no hitter will come along and break it.
I think there's just too many good back end bullpen guys, and there's too many stats that say don't throw to this guy. In this situation where guys are going to walk, I don't think 56 games is. I wonder what the highest since 2010, the longest hit streak since 2010 would be.
Well, there was, I think, I want to say there was a 40, might have been a 44 gamer. I don't remember by who, but there was a 45 gamer, and I think it bookended from season to season.
Yeah, you might be right.
I can't remember now. But I just wanted to throw that out there. I saw it earlier in the week as well, and I thought, I wonder, and I took into account everything you said right there. I wonder if there will be someone that will come along with just a Tony Gwynn-like barrel control and be able to break that streak one day. Probably not, though, you're saying.
Right. I know there was a college guy. There was a college guy that had a really long hitting streak.
Yeah.
Well, from Florida. I don't think it was the guy that hit 6 home runs in a game. Remember that guy for Florida State? That was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Or that guy who played all 9 positions in one game for Florida State as well. Currently a big leaguer, Buster Posey.
That's right.
Years ago. Yeah.
Florida State's just looking for press, apparently. Those guys.
That's right.
I guess they have a decent program too.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I thought I'd just bring those two factors up and those 2 points about Mr. Ted Kluszewski. If you do get a chance, look up his career later today or whenever you do get a chance to listen to this on baseballreference.com. Also, by the way, some good news. We have full episodes on our YouTube page at Epstein Hitting Podcast. So be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube page. New episodes, the new archived episodes that we had previously are available on YouTube now. Episodes 2 and Episode 3 will be available next week. Episode 2 is currently available. New episodes will premiere every Friday at 9 a.m. So check out our YouTube page. We'll have clips up there as well. Starting here in the next coming week. So we finally got our YouTube page up and kicking. We're very excited about that. Today we're talking about BaseballSavant.com, episode number 14 of the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast. And Jake, it's one of the more analytical heavy websites. I mean, it contains traditional and advanced statistics, heat maps, visual reports, matchups for hitters and pitchers. If you really take a look at this website, it's almost as if you'd have to take a full morning or afternoon to sort through everything that is up there. The people who came up with this website did a phenomenal job in sorting it and putting the necessary information out there for people who want to learn more about these traditional and advanced statistics and just someone who's just a stat head in general.
It's such great information, and it's overwhelming. I mean, there's a lot of information there that you kind of shake your head at. But the big thing with any kind of statistics is looking deeper and seeing what does that actually mean. If we look at just an exit velocity, percentage, or a barrels percentage, or a launch angle percentage, that's an average of everything. That's an average of all their at bats, right? So that can be, just because somebody with a really high, we touched on this last time, a really high, an average average launch angle in the 20s, right? Where you say, I want to get my launch angle percentage up, but then you look at, one of the top guys in there was Brandon Belt, right? Yeah. Well, he's not a guy that hits, 270, right? He hits under 270. So you're like, well, maybe that doesn't work. And he doesn't hit more than 50 home runs. So now you're like, well, that means he maybe is hitting a lot of ground balls at 0 degrees and maybe a lot of pop-ups at 60 degrees. And one of those average, right? They average at 30. So you have to kind of take all of that into consideration when you're looking at stats amongst all the players. And we'll kind of dive into that. However, I did find the longest hit streaks because it was really bothering me when we were talking about this a few minutes ago.
Great.
Dan Uggla, of all people, Dan Uggla in 2011 had a 33-game hit streak, and Andre Ethier in 2011 had a 30-game hit streak. Okay, so I'm not sure how accurate this data is past 2011, but that was the latest. So 33 games dating back to 2011, which was 9 years ago. I couldn't tell you what, we could probably look it up, but what the last 2 years was like.
Yeah.
I just think it's really tough. I think with hitters that are changing, I mean, if somebody like Bregman, who's, kind of on plane for a long time, and somebody like Yelich, who's on plane for a long time, if those guys aren't getting 20, 30 games in a row, like there's no chance people that have, different swing planes are going to be able to even touch that.
Well, I'm sorry.
Anyway, back to baseball.
No, I was going to say, I'm sorry, kids. Jake just spoiled everybody's dreams. All those kids listening, you spoiled their dreams. Kids, you'll never.
I did.
You'll never get that streak.
Hey, you know what? Pick up a golf club and shoot 59. There's your next goal.
That's right. Dan Uggla. I feel guilty, by the way. One of the only lasting memories I have of Dan Uggla is that error he made in the All-Star game in Yankee Stadium in 2008. Yeah, that's the one memory
I remember his giant forearms. Yeah. He was like a little muscle.
Good player.
His muscles had muscles.
Good player. Don't get me wrong, but that's the one thing that sticks out in my mind with him. Andre Ethier too. There's a name from the past he's a good player. Andre. He was a good player.
He's a good player.
Yeah, very solid. Arizona State kid. Very solid. By the way, I first discovered Baseball Savant in April of 2019, last year. I grazed through it a few times a week, and then once the minor league season ended for me, and I was more structured 9-to-5 type schedule, and the Major League postseason began, I checked the game feed a lot and the scoreboard virtually every night. I mean, starting in early September when the races started to heat up. And some of the statistics that were displayed in-game, like the in-game statistics were very insightful. I encourage, I don't know about you, but I encourage everybody, especially on next Thursday when baseball starts, try to go to baseballsavant.com and follow along with the Yankees and the Nationals on the game feed, and you'll get some pretty cool statistics that pop up there.
Yep, you will, and it'll start to make more sense. I mean, the more we dive into it too, and the more research you do, you become smarter at everything, right? And you can see how it makes sense and what players are actually trying to do or trying not to do.
Yeah, and it shows some defensive percentages and some shifts and just in general, it sort of brings to light the strategy, maybe analytically, of what a team is doing in that game, which I kind of enjoy as well and learning through. And if you click on the visuals tab too, there's a pitch highlighter, a home run derby, a visual pitch report, pitch arsenal, player comparison, which helps scouting, I would imagine, and in your case too. Let me ask you this, from your position as an evaluator, how does this website, and I'm just looking at it now with all the things I just mentioned, how does a website like this help you better complete your job? And I'm just strictly talking about players on Baseball Savant who are in professional baseball. But as an evaluator, how can this website help you or anybody else out there that's a professional evaluator?
For me, it helps me learn, because I can take, what I know about the swing and, a barrel path or a hand path or their contact points. And then from there, I can forecast, what does that certain mechanical move or that certain swing move lead to hot zones. Okay, so if I'm looking at, a player's, they hit the ball better middle away, they don't hit the ball middle in, or vice versa. And then I can take all that information that I've learned and studied, and I can apply that to, say, a 14-and-a-half-year-old Venezuelan kid, and I can say, okay, here's what he is doing right now. This is where he's going to be projected. Even though there's no stats on this 14-and-a-half-year-old kid in StatCast, or in Baseball Savant,
sure,
I can use what I know about the swing to see what his future may hold. And if he has above average talent, hand coordination, vision, athleticism, strength, whatever, now all of a sudden we can say, okay, do we want him to be this, or can we make a couple changes on a swing side, on a swing plane side, or a body movement side, to now maybe change those, that strike zone that he can cover. So maybe his hot zone isn't 4 inches by 4 inches. We can make that hot zone 8 or 9 inches by 8 or 9 inches. So that's kind of how I use it. I also use it for there's it's probably under the visuals area where you can see if a ball is hit at this miles per hour. For instance, if a ball is hit 90 miles an hour and it's hit on a 12-degree trajectory, it's a hit, and 90% of the time. It's 90 miles an hour and it's hit at 40 degrees, then it's a hit 10% of the time. If it's hit 100 miles an hour, degrees, which most people think would be good,
right,
it might only be a hit 70% of the time. So I can take players, look, where do you fit in? You look, you have Bregman and you have somebody like Stanton or Judge that hits the ball really, really hard. Bregman's average exit velocity, is significantly lower than those guys. Does that make him an inferior hitter? Well, absolutely not, right? Because, maybe guys swing and miss a lot.
Yeah.
So that doesn't count in batted balls. That doesn't count in average exit velocity, right? Because they swing and miss maybe at a good pitch. Where Bregman might be on plane deep in the zone, shoot a line drive into right field, pick up an RBI, but maybe he only hit that ball 92 miles an hour. So it's not even considered a barrel, for a baseball savant. So you have to really understand what you're looking for. You can't just look at numbers and be like, oh, I mean, and then this is what front office guys do. And this is what agents do. And the guys, I have a very good friend, Sean Martin, who, works for a huge agency, and he dives into these kind of stats when they're making contracts or creating contracts for their free agents, because it's not just about this number or this number. It's about, understanding what that number really means, every piece of it. Right. This guy's on the top of the list for, barrels.
Yeah.
Well, when he misses the barrel because he swings so hard, it's still considered a barrel. I think we looked at that stat earlier, right? 98 miles an hour on Baseball Savant is considered a barrel.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can get a lot of hits, without hitting that barrel. Like Judge is going to hit balls 98 miles an hour and not hit the sweet spot, but it'll be considered a barrel, just because he's athletically gifted.
Well, I was going to say, too, to your point, just to piggyback on that, last night I was watching the Rays and the Athletics, the American League wildcard game from last year, and Chris Davis, something that stuck out in my mind, he hit a humpback liner to short. The exit velocity was 81 miles per hour. He hit it off the pretty much the very end of the bat. It was 81 miles per hour. So it just goes to show you, in a way, how deceiving, but also how accurate at the same time exit velocity could be, correct? I mean, when you really look at that, you're saying 81 miles per hour off the end of the bat. He's really, really strong, and that could be kind of projecting his power or any player for that matter, the power for future seasons or future plate appearances.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, barrels they don't come by all the time. They don't happen every day, at that level, so you have to have guys, can we still get hits when we don't hit barrels? You know what? In BP, we can hit barrels all day long.
Sure.
But how do we adjust the pitches and maybe still find a barrel, or, because we're fooled, or we have to reach, or we have to keep our hands in a little bit more to find that barrel. Versus, just swinging and missing, and getting jammed, and but fighting off tough pitches like that. I mean, hits are hits. Hits move runners. Hits get you on base. Hits score runs, right? So, and so do walks. So don't get me wrong.
Right.
Like, walks do the same thing. They're not going to drive in runs, but once in a while, like, do you know how golden 2-out RBIs are when you hit an 81 mile an hour ball into the outfield on a really tough pitch, where maybe 60% of major league players are going to swing and miss at that pitch, and the inning's over? If you can do that once or twice a week, you're an MVP.
Right.
You're at least a team MVP, because you're driving in 100 runs a year.
Yeah. By the way, I'm looking at the visual pitch report on baseballsavant.com. That's under the visuals tab, and what the visual pitch report shows is the plate from the catcher's point of view, and it highlights all the pitches, and there are so many little dots that are right on the black of each part of the plate. Outer half, top of the zone, bottom of the zone, inner half. Wow. That right there kind of shows how good Major League pitching really is. They live on the corners.
They do. I mean, that's what they're trying to do, and you have to. I mean, they're not always going to hit that spot, but you have to be able to cover it.
Yes.
And you can't. Even if you cheating's great, right? Like, this guy's going to paint middle away. You take that away from him, and you shoot a ball the other way. That's great. And then the next time up, you're probably going to get pitched a little bit differently. But to be able to make those adjustments, have a mental plan to cover those adjustments, that's crucial.
Yeah.
Like, that's crucial to be able to, hey, I can't cover that outside channel, and I can't cover the inside channel on this pitch. I need to divide this plate in half and hunt that territory. And if I can cover that territory, I'm going to be successful. If my anticipation and my plan was off, then I lose that at bat.
Sure.
And then I'll make an adjustment my next at bat. But that's why it's so important. You can't go up to the plate at that level, or college baseball level, or
right. Yeah.
Some of these big, travel ball 16 under, 18 under tournaments. You can't go up to the plate looking for everything, saying, oh, I'm going to cover everything here. You have to have, we talked about visualization early, in an earlier episode. what am I looking for? Can I close my eyes and see where that pitch is coming before you get up to the plate when you're sitting on the bench? And then when that pitch all of a sudden happens when you're in the box, you're reacting to it and you're ahead of the game because essentially you've seen it and you've felt it, and now you can reproduce it.
Yeah. And you've told stories before on this show about some of your hitters at Mizzou when they would have a plan, so it would appear, and they went up there and kind of abandoned that plan because they
didn't trust their plan.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, you have to trust it too.
Well, coming up, we're going to talk about the StatCats leaderboard, dive into that a little bit, plus what some of these statistics actually mean, how they could apply to a player and help a player. We're going to talk about that coming up. But first, I want to spread some news, exciting news. The Lab this week, well, actually last week, but they've announced that former Major League Baseball pitcher, World Series champion, and Texas A&M star Alex Wilson has been added to the staff. Jake, we talked about this last week. It's very exciting for you guys. He's launched the throwing program. It's been carefully designed for consistent practice and includes up to 4 sessions per week. And the sessions take place every Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. and include throwing, shoulder, health and strength, plyometrics, and conditioning. Each player will receive a custom outlined weekly program to complete so that you guys can monitor the monthly progress. And players can attend any time during the 3-hour window to get their work in, typically 30 to 60 minutes daily, depending on their personalized program. So I'm guessing that that's really going to draw a lot of people to the Lab here in the coming weeks, especially on the throwing end. Obviously.
Yeah, man. I mean, and a lot of them, and we're starting with throwing, and then we're going to filter them into more of a pitching program. But I want throwing for my guys, for my hitters, for my position players. What Willie brings to the table is ridiculous, for experience, competition, knowledge, shoulder care, health care. Hey, how do you get to the big leagues? How do you stay in the big leagues? Sure. Right? I mean, this is priceless information. So we're really excited. He lives fairly close to the facility there, and he's a fun guy. He's super knowledgeable. He's good with kids, and we're hoping that this is part of the next journey of his career. He's a pretty natural teacher, which isn't easy to find. I've found that with my hitting guy Matt Yingle. He's knowledgeable, but he's a teacher, and he can communicate, and he can get players to really buy in. In fact, we were looking at some of our guys when we started the training back in January, and then our high school guys, we looked at their swings, and they were coming up to me, and they're like, my swing was so bad when I started, in January. He's like, it's so polished now, I can't believe it. And I need to go back and look at everybody because we worked so hard with that group of players. It works, man. I mean, that the process, the facility we built there, it works for hitting. It's going to be just as good for throwing, and then with pitching as well, the stuff that Willie's going to bring in.
Yeah, so the program, it's expected to fill up very fast, and it's ideal, as Jake mentioned, for both players and pitchers. It's year-round and organized around players' needs to fit their preseason, in-season, and off-season training goals as well. It's a membership program that's based around 16 to 20 hours per month of all training, and it's all for $199 per month. So you can put your membership on hold or cancel at any time. Again, social distancing rules are always in effect at the Lab BCS. So for more information and to register, click on, this is an email. Go to www.thelabbcs.com and click on the sign up tab. Again, that is thelabbcs.com, and click on the sign up tab. All right, getting back to the show, be sure to like and subscribe. New episodes every Monday, wherever you get your podcast at 9 a.m. We're on YouTube, our YouTube channel, with full archived episodes at Epstein Hitting Podcast. And follow Ep and I on social media. I'm at Jim Tara. Jake is at Epstein Hitting on Twitter and Instagram. And email us your questions at jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. That is jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. One thing you and I were looking at prior to the show, when you go to, and we invite you to click on baseballsavant.com and follow along with what we're saying here if you can do that. But if you click on the leaderboard, the last tab at the top, the one thing you and I were discussing prior to recording this was what the BBE meant, the BBE at the top of the page. And what that means is the batted balls events. Batted balls events. And that's one statistic right there that maybe you wouldn't so much turn towards and tell kids to go to because it could be a little bit too confusing. And it's not exactly the meat and potatoes of what this website could do for a player or a coach.
And what I don't know with the batted ball events is that in play or
Sure.
could that be a foul ball? I don't know. I think it's probably in play, a batted ball in play. Again, that doesn't take into consideration swings and misses. So I'm looking at that right now. Mm-hmm. Batted ball, events. I got Nelson Cruz at 326. I got Mike Trout at 354. I got Aaron Judge at 238. Mm-hmm. Did he miss a lot of time last year? I don't know. But is that because he fouls a lot of pitches off? These guys put more balls in play, right? So, those are the kind of things you have to think about. There's guys that have way more. So if we sort to BBE, you got guys you don't even really know. I mean, but you got Whit Merrifield, you got Marcus Semien, okay, you got Starlin Castro, you got Albies. I mean, these are guys that put balls in play. LeMahieu, Lindor, Gurriel, Betts, Arenado. So, your Bogarts. So these guys have, way more events than some of the power hitters because, maybe their attack angle's a little bit different, right? Maybe their swing plane's a little bit different. So it's really cool to kind of play around with and see what, where guys kind of fit in based on what kind of player they are. Yeah. And you can sit and sort it. Like you can go to what's their hard hit percentage, what's their barrels, per batted ball. Again, barrels is 98 miles an hour. That's pretty big. So if we sort barrels per batted ball, you got Sano, Judge, Nelson Cruz. So Nelson Cruz, there's a value pick right there, right? There's a guy that hits barrels, and he also puts a lot of balls in play. So that's a pretty good combo. And again, this is exit velocity, right? Pretty much barrels. So you got big, strong guys. Sano is massive. What is he, 280? No, he's probably not that big. 270.
I'd say 250.
Judge Cruz. He's got to be 250. I mean, all these guys are 250 plus. Nelson Cruz, Gary Sanchez is like solid as a rock. His neck's like the size of my thigh.
Yeah.
Trout, right? Jorge Soler is a monster. And then you go down the list, and Yelich is 8th, in barrels per batted ball event, and he's an MVP and hit leader. So, and Acuna is even further down, right? A kind of a skinnier guy.
Is that surprising to you that he's further down? He's number 12 on the list, by the way.
Acuna?
Yeah.
No, because he's not a massive dude.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, he's not a 250-pound guy, 240-pound guy. He's still young. He's fairly thin. He does obviously find barrels.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, if we look at Acuna, what else do we have here? So we have, an average launch angle of 14 degrees, which is higher than Judge. Mm-hmm. Okay. In fact, he's one of the higher. He and Mitch Garver, who I don't know a whole lot about. Who is that guy?
Mitch Garver.
21.
With the Twins.
Odor.
Yeah.
Right? Odor's got a really high, average launch angle, too.
Yeah.
But you would think like Aaron Judge would have a really high launch angle. It's 11.3. Where, Matt Olson for the A's, big, tall, left-handed hitter, he's at 19 degrees, with his average launch angle. So you can't just categorize people, think, oh, this guy hits a ton of fly balls. Like Judge hits a lot of rollovers to the pull side.
Yeah.
When he's a little bit early, he gets a lot of topspin. He hits a lot of low nukes that go out of the park to left field, that most people would hit doubles on. So, his launch angle isn't as high, even though you think he's a guy that hits these big towering home runs to right field. He also has his fair share of, low launching balls to the left side.
Yeah. I'm looking now, I'm clicking on the hard hit, not tab, whatever you want to call it, header, I guess. Right next to the barrels. And I clicked on the hashtag sign there. And it says, for me, the 95 plus hard hit balls, I think I have this correct. Jorge Soler last year hit 70. I can believe this with his year last year. Mike Trout is number 2, by the way, with 67. But they hit 70 and 67 balls of 95 miles per hour plus exit velocity. Ronald Acuna Jr. came in 3rd with 66. Nelson Cruz with 65. Jose Abreu with 63. Pete Alonso with 63. I thought he would be a little bit higher, but I don't know. All those highlights you see all the time, it's like they hit 95 plus every single at bat or plate appearance. And then you go down the list.
That's a pretty good. And then if you look at the launch angle of those guys, right, they're kind of all over the place.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, with Jose Abreu, his launch angle 10.9. Are you surprised that that's not higher?
Abreu's a pretty flat swinger.
Yeah,
actually. So no, I'm not surprised with that.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at different guys, usually I would say guys with higher, it could go either way. Like,
sure.
Like Schwarber, 15, Suarez, like I would see, I mean, who's the highest in that list? Rendon. I mean, would you categorize Rendon as a fly ball hitter?
No.
He's 19 degrees. He's the highest. I mean, he might be the highest on that entire list. 19 and a half degrees. That's his average. To me, like, people think, oh, he's a fly ball hitter. Rendon's not a fly ball hitter at all, right?
Yeah.
So he's just hitting line drives. Like his spray, instead of his spray, going from, like I said earlier, ground balls, maybe -5 degrees to 70 degrees with pop-ups. His entire field of, launch angle is condensed. Maybe his is like 5 to 35, something like that, 5 to 40. So even though his launch angle has a higher percentage, it doesn't mean he's a fly ball hitter. It means that he's probably hitting less fly balls and less ground balls because of his swing plane is making him hit more line drives. So that's the whole launch angle thing. You can't look at a launch angle because if you look at that, and what was Judge? Is Judge on this list? He's not.
Aaron Judge.
This is the hard hit percentage, right? I mean, I don't see him in the top 25. There he is, 32. So Judge, 11.3 launch angle.
You would think it would be higher, yeah.
You think it'd be higher, and you got Rendon at 20. He's almost doubled up on his launch angle, but they're totally different hitters.
Yeah. Well, why is
totally different?
I think that's what confuses people. Why is that? Because Rendon is not a fly ball hitter. He's right. Am I wrong? I mean, he's got power, but
yeah. Well, what is 11? What is 20 degrees? That's like perfect. 15 to 25 is your extra bases.
Right.
If you hit a ball, 100 miles an hour in a big league or 100 miles an hour off the bat, and you're hitting it at 20 degrees, like that's so many doubles and a few home runs, right? So his spread is, what I'm saying is his spread is different. His spread is, I mean, if we average it at 20, right? I mean, I'm just making this up. I don't know, but maybe his average is, 10 to 30, right? His range, it's probably not. It's probably like 0 to 40. Yeah. So you go 0 to 40, he hits his low line drives at 0, he hits ground balls at 0, and he hits his fly balls at 40, where maybe some people hit choppers that are at -10, and they hit balls, all the way up, much, much higher. So
sure.
I think we'd have to look at like ground ball percentage versus like line drive percentage. Those kind of things would play a much bigger part in this to kind of understand it a little bit more.
Yeah. Let's shift gears here to the exit velocity. That's something that we talked about a few weeks back, and how the exit velocity on ground balls can be slightly deceiving. And I think we talked about that during the Bryce Harper breakdown episode, which is available in the archives, by the way. Just looking at the Baseball Savant page, it has the exit velocity, it has the max, it has the average, it has the...
So did you sort that yet for ground balls?
I did not. I'm just going through all of the
So I sorted it for ground balls, and Judge is third from the top.
Okay. Yes.
He's
Yeah.
actually tied
He's
for
tied for second with Moncada.
91.8 on ground ball exit velocity. So that tells you why his launch angle is a little bit lower.
Yeah.
Right? He hits a lot of really hard ground balls.
Yeah. Well, can you explain what because that's kind of deceiving, I think, right? Can you explain the factors and what makes it deceiving?
Why hard hit ground balls, or
a little bit deceiving with exit velocity, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, you square it up more. So if if the ball is traveling on a fastball, now Judge is also, pretty much first place in fly ball / line drive. There needs to be a deviation there.
Yeah.
Between fly ball and line drive, because it says fly ball line drive, he's almost 100 miles an hour, right? But maybe his line drive is like 110 and his fly ball is like 70.
Yeah.
So and then you break into percentages there. But now I forgot the question you asked me. No, I remember now. So pitches come in at, say, 5 to 6 degrees down.
Yeah.
Coming from the pitcher. So in order to maximize velocity, you want to hit that. You want to hit the whole ball. You want to hit the equator of that ball. Now, the equator of that ball is at a 5-degree downslope, right? So the middle of the ball is facing, 5 degrees towards the catcher's mitt. So if you swing up at 5 degrees and you center that ball, completely center it, middle of your barrel, middle of that ball, 5 degrees up, you're going to maximize the exit velocity, the energy transfer between the bat and the ball. What is that ball going to launch at? It's going to launch at like 5 degrees. What's 5 degrees? It's like a one-hopper bullet to an infielder.
Yeah. Into the
shift. When you hit a ball high, so if the ball's coming down at 5 or 6 degrees and you hit this thing at 30 degrees, you either cut it. A line drive hitter is going to backspin that ball. They're going to swing through the bottom half, maybe at 5 to 10 degrees up. Right, so they're not hitting the whole ball; they're hitting the bottom half of the ball. So the exit velocity is not going to be as high, but the launch angle is going to be good, and the spin rate will be good.
Yeah.
Or you have guys that home run hitters that drop underneath, and then they come back up and hit the ball, swinging up at like 15 or 20 degrees. They time it right. That ball is coming down at 5, so they're still not hitting the whole ball; they're hitting the bottom of it more. So you're not going to have as much energy coming out of that ball. That's why ground balls are typically hit, really hard.
That makes sense.
Or low line drives. I shouldn't say. Don't think of a ground ball as like a 2-3 hopper. I mean, that is a ground ball, but when you're talking about really hard hit balls, those are 1 hoppers or line drives, like right at infielders' thighs. Right. That high off the ground, 5 to 9 degrees or so.
Yeah, I'm with you, by the way, on the fly ball to line drive exit / line drive exit velocity. That could be very deceiving. Miguel Sano's 1, Aaron Judge is 2, Nelson Cruz 3. Franmil Reyes of now the Indians, is number 4. Boy, the Reds and the Indians logo, their logo there looks very similar. Very, very similar.
It's getting that way.
Oh, my goodness. Josh Donaldson is number 5 with the Braves last year, now with the Twins. Kyle Schwarber is number 6. Mitch Garver of the Twins is number 7. It's kind of a name that's thrown in there that's sort of random in the top 10, I guess. You look at all the other names, you kind of expect them to be there, but Garver, number 7, it's kind of high for him. You wouldn't expect it, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, I wonder if there's a way to break up, percent. I would say a fly ball would be anything over 45 degrees, I would categorize, or 40 degrees. Yeah. And a line drive somewhere between 12 and maybe 40, 12 and 39, something like that. To separate those numbers, that'd be pretty fun to see with guys. But, in terms of how we train is, we take our players, we have one of our guys who's, only a junior this year at local College Station High School, Dalton. And he, pound for pound, this guy's 170 pounds, really athletic kid, great vertical. He's a wide receiver on the football team, but he's not big. He's not 200 pounds. He's not 6'2". He's probably 6 foot. And he hit the ball 100 miles an hour the other night, during our home run derby off the machine. That was throwing pretty nasty. So, there's a guy that hits home runs. He hits them, in his practice all the time. But then I'll have a guy that's his same age that only hits the ball. They max out at like 83 miles an hour. Well, those guys have to have 2 different launch angles to be successful, Dalton can get away with a lot of stuff because he hits the ball over 90 miles an hour all the time when he, finds decent barrel. Where that other kid, if he hits balls above, say, 33 degrees, they're going to get caught. And so, therefore, when you have these little kids that are 10 and 12 years old and they're trying to hit fly balls all the time, they get away with it when the field's small and the kid's big. And then as soon as they get to like the 60-foot mound and the 90-foot bases, everybody catches up to them.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden those balls that may have gone over the fence, now all of a sudden they're cans of corn. So, I had a kid in town who's one of my favorite guys. I've known him for a really long time. He's from Florida, and he was strong when he was young, and he was probably one of the best dang 12, 13-year-olds in the state of Florida for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden everybody caught up to him. Yeah. People got bigger, people grew. And all of a sudden that swing that he had where he was trying to lift fly balls, where he would hit 16 home runs a year in summer ball, right now all of a sudden he's on a high school field and, he's only hitting the ball 350 feet. It doesn't play. Right. So he came out for a week and we had to, hey, let's go. And that's where the hit tracks is beautiful. Let's try to get in this range. Let's get you in that 15 to like 25 degree range. And that's what we worked on, adjusting his swing point so that his average launch angle fit into that. And now he's where he should be. He's a middle infielder. He's 5'8". There's no reason for him to try to, hit balls out of the park right now. Now, if he gets bigger and stronger, then I'm sure he could probably add some distance, but that's not the type of player he is. And we have to know that. Like everybody isn't the same. They're not all cookie cutters, and we can use data to our advantage to help train that player appropriately.
Yeah. And also, too, the power is the last thing to come in a player's swing, correct? A lot of times.
It can be. Yeah. It depends on the player. Yeah. If you're talking about, a professional player that, gets into the minor leagues, they typically don't have much power the first few years. And then all of a sudden, where did all this power come from, right? You look at Alonso, like those guys had power in the minor leagues, try to have power in the minor leagues, but nobody ever hit 40 in the minor leagues, right? For the most part, no. Maybe because they got brought up after, but nobody hits 30 home runs in A-ball. Right, like it's just not. And if they do, they're not there yet. So guys figure it out. Typically there's little tweaks. They feel, I would say, contact point more than anything. The difference between amateur baseball and college baseball, and then going to pro ball is contact point. You see guys with really good power. They hit the ball really far out in front, and they hit it in the air. Yeah. We talked about the whole Justin Turner thing, right? You hit the ball out in front, you hit it in the air. That's not an easy thing to do. When Judge hits the ball out in front, he hits it on the ground. Right. Okay. When Yelich hits the ball out in front, he hits it in the air. So Judge lets the ball get deeper, and he's awesome when he lets it get deep. That's him, right? That's his. He's comfortable with that, and that's why he tries to take balls to right center field, right? That works for him, but it doesn't work for everyone. Just like Yelich kind of figured it out, but he needs to, if he lets the ball get deep, he can shoot the ball the other way, and the baseballs are hard enough. He can hit balls to left field out of the park, but not with the ease that somebody like Trout or Bellinger or Judge can go the other way. We've been testing a lot of different balls at the lab, and holy cow, what a difference in balls. Like you take a high school baseball, and then we tested it with a college flat seam baseball. That college flat seam baseball is like 3 or 4 miles an hour harder. Sure. And then we tested with minor league. I just bought a bunch of minor league balls. The minor league balls are like 4 or 5 harder than the college balls.
Oh yeah.
It's ridiculous. And those aren't the big league balls. The big league balls. So balls play a really big factor now in the game of baseball because we can hit balls higher and we don't have to have that exit velocity and they'll go. But at the college level, that doesn't, because those balls aren't quite as hard, it doesn't work. In high school, I still think high school is the hardest age to be successful because you're using a raised seam ball that isn't as hard, and the fields are pretty big, right? They're bigger than a lot of major league parks. In addition, the strike zones are way bigger than a big league strike zone. So I think it is harder to hit at the younger level sometimes, aside from the stuff that those big league pitchers have, right? That's kind of the great equalizer. But, we got to give the hitters a chance sometimes. So make those balls hard, make those stadiums small. I'm all for it.
Well, I hear this a lot, too, from former players who played at the advanced day level, and now are in the big leagues, talk to them in spring training and whatnot, they will say, verbatim, they'll say, hitting in the big leagues is easier than hitting in the minor leagues. And a big reason for that is what you just said. The strike zone is smaller. It's almost to a point where it's minuscule at the major league level. And it's easier for guys to have a plan, I guess, and hit at the major league level for whatever reason, even though it looks like it's the hardest thing to do in the world, which it is, don't get me wrong, but that strike zone's a big factor.
It's huge. I mean, when you got a 1-1 count, and all of a sudden there's a ball that's, an inch off the plate that everybody's going to call a strike, but a big league umpire doesn't. Yeah. Now the count's 2-1. Wow, I'd much rather be 2-1 than 1-2. Or what about the first pitch of an at-bat? That's borderline, right? All of a sudden, oh, man, I'm 0-1. I'm in the hole already, first pitch, versus, I haven't faced a competitive at-bat in 19 years, but I still remember the feeling I would get when that first pitch was a ball. Yeah. And I was sitting 0-1. Like, I felt like unstoppable in that count. So that happens a lot. That's why you see so many guys that actually, some guys take the first pitch, right? A lot of guys do, but that's why you see so many guys aggressive on the first pitch in Major League Baseball, is because the strike zone is small. Yeah. And those guys are trying to get ahead. Those pitchers are trying to get ahead on that first pitch.
Yeah. By the way, I want to cover all my bases here. How could Baseball Savant help softball players, if at all?
What a great question. Thanks for really bringing that one out of nowhere. You could have sent me that in an email, Jim.
Need a coffee to kick in?
I don't know. Yeah, let me have another cup of coffee. I'll be right back. How can it help softball players? I think we would have to make one for softball players because it's different. Okay. The ball is so different. Yeah. The girls are so different. You have girls that are big and strong and powerful and can launch balls much higher or cut balls much higher. Softball players, notoriously, you go on Twitter and you watch these Olympians taking BP. I just posted one today because she's, I don't know if you saw that. It was right before we started. She's my daughter's favorite softball player. Okay, her name's Paige Halstead. She played at UCLA. My daughter loves UCLA. She's a catcher. She's kind of tall and skinny. My kid weighs like 60 pounds, and I'm like, you got to get bigger. And so she finds Paige, who's not, a massive catcher, right? Yeah. But it's just, if you watch all of them, all these, Olympians like that are training, they're all very flat level swingers, whether they're left-handed or right-handed. It's just the way it is in softball at the high level because the pitch is so fast and it spins so much. So their swing planes are different. Their launch angles are slightly different too, where they can cut balls a lot higher. I know, Bailey, one of our favorite players, obviously, who we see every year, she launches balls without swinging up. It's not like she swings up 20 degrees, but she'll launch balls 40 degrees in the air that go out of the park. Yeah. Because the field's, 210 feet, and she creates really good bat speed and back spin. And that combination means a lot of her fly balls go out of the park where a lot of other people's, they don't. So it would need to be customized for softball, unfortunately. I don't think you can use similar data. You can use some of the data, but the fields are different and the players are different, and the swing planes are different.
Really quickly before we wrap it up here, how much, if you go to the barrels part of the leaderboards tab, it's towards the end of the page to the right, how much weight do you put in barrels / BBE percentage and barrels / plate appearance percentage? It seems kind of squirrely to me, those two metrics.
It's like I mentioned earlier, I'd like to watch it. You know of a guy that hits barrels. Yeah. There's certain guys. I have certain high school guys that hit barrels. I have certain 10-year-olds that come in and train every week with us, that find barrels, even if their swing isn't the most consistent or most mechanically correct. So I don't know if I'm on the same page as you. I hit barrel percentage, and I got Nelson Cruz as number 1. Yes. And I got Trout as number 2, and Soler as number 3. And Yelich is number 4, and Donaldson and Alonso. So these are guys that I mean, these guys all make a lot of money, so they're probably Acuna's on that top list. Bryce Harper's 10th, but he's probably number one in the money category, right? So,
yes. Well, Trout's number
barrels,
one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you did a barrels percentage, again, that is probably barrels per, batted ball in play percentage. That barrels is 98 miles an hour. So Cruz is huge. Trout is so strong. Solaire's a, specimen.
Yeah.
Yelich is, he's tall, right? But he's not like he's not going to deadlift the world. Alonso is awesome because he looks like every 35-year-old ex-player, even though he's 26 or whatever. He's a guy that finds a sweet spot. So I really think that it has to do if you put him in weight categories or bats. I think bat speed categories would be really fun.
Yeah.
Right. You have what's your average bat speed? Okay, and you rank those guys in the top 10, and then what's your barrel percentage? So I think barrel percentage should be. I don't know if it's even possible, but it should be directly related to the individual player. Okay, so for instance, this is 98 miles an hour. So it doesn't matter if you're Nelson Cruz or if you're Jose Lindor.
Yeah.
Okay, is Lindor on this page?
That's one name. That's one name that we really haven't talked much about, or even seen on this list on any of these lists is Francisco Lindor of the Indians. That's interesting.
Right. It is interesting.
Yeah.
I'm still searching. Right. So here's Altuve. Altuve's 8.1.
Wow. Yeah.
8.1. Would you take him? I mean, whatever the controversy is, the dude still won batting titles other years.
I still think, I still think he's great, no matter the
right.
controversy.
I mean, you have Albert Pujols as a 6. Here's one that's interesting. Joey Votto, 5.9. So that's a problem for me. Here's a big, strong power hitter that doesn't have a very high barrel percentage.
Yeah.
That's a real problem.
By the way, I clicked on the launch angle again.
So, sorry, Bregman's 5.4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Bregman's 126 on the list.
Yeah.
It's just a different swing.
Right. That makes sense.
It's a different swing, but it doesn't mean that he's the 126th best hitter in baseball.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and to that point, too, by the way, my segue here is going to be kind of shitty, but I clicked on the launch angle again, and you won't believe this. Well, maybe you will. I don't know. J.D. Martinez, I was looking for Lindor, someone we haven't really mentioned on the show, and then J.D. Martinez is just ahead of him. J.D. Martinez, what number ranking do you think he is in launch angle in Major League Baseball?
I would think he would kind of be by Judge.
Okay. He's 140.
So what was Judge, 11 or something?
J.D. Martinez is 147th at 12.3. He's tied with Jonathan Scope, actually. Francisco Lindor is 149. So Lindor, 149 at 12.2 launch, which I can kind of believe looking at his swing. But J.D. Martinez, that's kind of a head scratcher. There's that.
But again, J.D. Martinez is a little bit more. That is a head scratcher because he's not quite as Judge-like. Like he has extension, but he drops his barrel a lot. Mm-hmm. So he hits a lot of fly balls to right center that some are caught and some are carried out, right?
Yeah.
But usually with that move, guys that hit the ball high to right field typically hit the ball low to the left side.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So it kind of makes sense to me. That's why I put him in that. What'd you say? He was 12. Yeah, he's right. And then so he's right now. And now Pujols is a different player now than he was.
Yeah.
Whatever, 10 years ago. But they're the same. Those guys have completely different swings. Pujols and Martinez, right? Totally different swings. Pujols has always been a flat swinger, totally level. Most of his home runs were kind of more of the flat cut home runs, where he's only swinging up at, maybe 5 to 10 degrees, where Martinez is the guy that probably swings up closer to 15 to 20 degrees. Yet, their average launch angle is very similar.
Yeah.
So, it's cool. This is what people don't understand. They put people in. So you're at average launch angle. You have Brandon Belt and Mike Trout next to each other. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, those guys aren't even, like, in the same category. Look at their barrel percentage. So their launch angle is exactly the same. Belt's barrel percentage is 8.7, and Trout's is 18.9. So he hits over twice as many barrels, balls hard, even though their launch angle is the same. So,
well, their numbers are night and day. Again, their numbers are night and day. I mean, even like the hard hit number, Brandon Belt 35, which you think should be higher. Mike Trout 67.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Very good stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, just really fun to dig a little deeper, figure out what works for each person, but know that everybody's in different buckets. They really are. Yeah. We talked about Bregman, and he doesn't hit very many barrels, right? So Bregman's 7th on the launch angle list at 19, but his barrel percentage is 5.4. So he's by far the lowest on there.
Yeah.
But he figures out a way to be good. Jose Ramirez, same thing, same launch angle, which is pretty high, higher than Judge, higher than Martinez, right? Yet his barrel percentage is very low. Well, it's because they're not as big and strong, right?
Yeah.
And they're still big leaguers. There's a place for everyone. You got to be a little bit better when you're not as strong.
Yeah.
You got to be a little bit more efficient. You got to, be maybe a little bit smarter, with your approaches. But you also get better pitches to hit. Not going to lie about that. Every time somebody goes to pitch to Judge, they're scared to death what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't think they're like that with Jose Ramirez, even though he's a fantastic hitter.
Yeah.
That fear is not there.
I wonder if that fear is there, before we break into our final segment here, I wonder if that fear is there, though, for Altuve, even though he's 5'7", 5'8". I wonder if that fear is there.
When they're in Houston, because that's a bandbox.
Right.
And, whatever happened. But, I think, I don't know.
I would be. Because he can do so much. He really can. He can. I mean, he's. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Is he today's modern day? I don't want to disrespect his name. Modern day Tony Gwynn, though. That's a stretch.
No.
Okay. Close. I don't know. Altuve's had
not anymore.
Year after year of just. I mean.
Yeah, he had a couple soft years in there, though, or not as great years. And then he had some really high years. So, and with the whole scandal that's going on, you don't know.
Yeah.
Like, what's his true year? Is his true year the year he hit like 16 home runs, or the year he hit 35 or 30 or whatever he hit? And he hit 320. Like, what's the right year where Gwynn was like, okay, he's going to hit 9 home runs a year and he's going to hit 332. Like, he's going to have 85 RBIs. Like, every year was exactly the same. So, I don't know if I'll ever be a guy like that, but maybe. I don't think that fear's there. I'd much rather face Altuve than Judge if I was a pitcher.
Yeah.
Even though he might get more hits, Judge's scary, man.
Yeah.
I can't make a mistake. Like, I make one little mistake, he's so strong, he's got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
That's fair. No, that makes sense.
There's guys like that. Now, Stanton's a big, strong guy, and I don't think he commands that respect, that Judge does, just because he's so inconsistent,
Well, if he played with his jersey sleeves cut off like the Reds do every single day, then people would be more intimidated.
Right.
Yeah.
More respect for sure.
That gentleman is very muscular, very much in shape.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll break into the final segment of the show coming up. But first, and I alluded to this last week, I want to tell you about our 3-pack Toronto Blue Jays face masks. They're here and now available in-store at the J Shop in Dunedin. Schedule your private shopping appointment today, logging on to DunedinBlueJays.com, of course, and clicking on the store tab. Or you can order online and use our new curbside pickup option. So again, it's our 3-pack Toronto Blue Jays face masks. They're here. I've got one. It's pretty cool, actually. Personally, and I'm not just saying that because I work for the team, I really do mean that. It's pretty cool and comfortable, by the way, too. That's a big thing, I think, with people. They want their face masks to be comfortable, and some people want them to be cool looking, like me. Well, I've got this 3-pack Toronto Blue Jays face mask, part of the 3-pack, and I got it at the J Shop, and you could too. So again, schedule your private shopping appointment now or order online and use the curbside pickup option. Let's break into our final segment here. We did get a question. This is sent from Dale through jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. He writes, "Hi, Jim. I was hoping you could ask Jake this on the podcast. My son is 13 and starting to grow into his body. Because of this, he has the potential to hit the ball farther. He seems to want to go to the leg kick more rather than the traditional stride that you guys have talked about. He's gone back and forth in recent months when we've been in the cage working out. My question is, how could I rebuild his stride in order to get him to a comfortable point to where he is still gaining the proper torque you guys have talked about on the show? Do I encourage a leg kick, dragging of the foot, no stride? Thanks, and great show." That is from Dale, again, sent to us through jimbopodcast21@gmail.com.
That's a good question, Dale. I had a kid in the other day, 8 years old. No, maybe he's 9. He's like our youngest guy. And this little dude can hit. And in case he's listening, it's Braden. And he has a leg kick. Got a big leg kick, right? He brings that sucker all the way up. And his dad's like, "God, I feel like that's just too much. We should not do that." I'm like, "Do you know how hard it is to have a leg kick and learn the timing of a leg kick? It is the most difficult thing in the world, rhythm and timing." I said, if he can do it now, we can always go to a smaller stride and a smaller leg kick. But for him to learn that, he can hit off machines. He can hit off any pitcher with any kind of windup because he's going to have control to balance in his back foot and have his brain tell him, okay, I need to get this foot down. So that kid, I constantly tell players, when I move, you move. Like, find a way to stride where when I move, you move, and you can get your foot down at the right time. Okay, because most every player, even if I'm throwing front toss, they don't move, they don't pick up their foot until I let go of the ball. Okay, that's just like every 97% of players age 9 to like 12. They just move too late. So this kid moves super early, but you know what he isn't? His timing isn't early because he knows how to control that leg kick. So if you're going to play with a leg kick, play with it now. Play with it now. If he can't do it when he's 14, then shut it down. But if you try to build a leg kick when you're like 15, 16, 17, you have no chance. So that's why, I use the analogy. It's not really an analogy, but I use the story as every Dominican has a leg kick that I see. All the ones I scout. Why? Because they're young and they constantly hit balls when they're 10 years old. They're throwing up balls. They're playing, they're hitting balls off the bottle caps. They're doing front toss. They're doing, home run derby. They're hitting rocks, whatever it is. And they all have a leg kick from a young age. So they all have pretty good timing by the time I get their, reports and videos when they're, usually 14 to just before their 16th birthday. So I would suggest if he likes the leg kick, give it a try. As far as the back foot, sit in the back foot. If you're going to have a leg kick, you got to make sure the good part about a leg kick is you got to start it early so you can keep your front shoulder down. Okay. So start that leg kick early. I usually have people, if I'm doing front toss, as soon as I bring my arm back or before, I have a very good old video clip of Pablo Sandoval and him with his leg kick with Bam Bam throwing him front toss with the Giants. I don't know how old he is, probably like 10 years old. And how early he would start that leg kick. Bam Bam wouldn't even start moving yet. It was like as soon as he moved, and he would just kind of balance and hold his leg kick in the air, and then he would get his foot down and his front shoulder down, and then boom, the ball would get on top of him and he would release. So I like the leg kick. Start with it early, start with it slow, but when he lands, have him make sure that he's sitting down on his back foot so it doesn't drag too much. That's the big thing. You don't want the big leg kick and a big weight shift and have them drift forward out of it. You want them to come out of that leg kick and that weight shift and start to sit down on that back thigh a little bit earlier than most.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how would they sit down in that back foot or really get good, I don't want to say leverage, but get the weight to balanced on that back foot, because you're on the inside part of your foot. You don't want to risk going outside that, I'll call it, I guess, ball of energy between your legs.
Yeah, it is what it is. Like, you just got to do it. You got to have somebody monitor. I mean, that's what we'll do, and we'll watch and be like, "No, you're moving too far forward. We'll put it on video." You got to sit down more. It's a feel, right? Yeah. So it's nothing I could really explain, except that you're thinking about getting more weight on your right leg, your right foot. As you drop your foot, you're not hard on your front foot. Yeah. Some players need to be, but if you have a leg kick, you don't want to be as hard on your front foot, because your hips will slide on heel plant instead of rotating. So as soon as you start to sit into that back foot and into that back knee, you couple that with the weight shift that you had, it all should be perfect. Now, if you just lift the leg straight up and put it straight down, you might actually squish the bug and collapse your backside. So it's like anything else. Like I always tell players, like, we can talk hitting on the phone, but send me a video of what your kid's doing through the online academy, and I'll tell you if it's too much or if it's not enough. And that's how we do it. They send me videos every 2 weeks, and I'm like, okay, leg kick looks good. Now we got to get more weight on the back foot. Work on that. Then send me a video next week. Boom. Now all of a sudden everything's working together. So just continue to monitor using video, and making sure that, it's not too much. The leg kick's not going back too far, and he's not collapsing his backside, or he's not drifting too far forward.
Well, we do appreciate all of your questions. Be sure to send them along on our social media or jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. Again, that is jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. Next week, we'll be talking about overall player development in regards to learning to be a professional hitter, having a feel for the game, if you will. That's something that isn't discussed enough, unfortunately. It'll be the first volume of our player development series, and that'll be episode number 15 next week.
Yep, that's how to be a great player, how not to just show up at the park before the game and leave after the game.
Yeah.
Treat it like a job, because it really is your job. Doesn't matter how old you are. If you want to take pride in what you're doing and pride in your statistics, you have to prepare properly. That'll be a fun episode.
We'll talk about that, episode number 15. Be sure to like and subscribe. New episodes every Monday at 9 a.m., wherever you get your podcast, our YouTube page, the Epstein Hitting podcast page with full episodes. Our social media, Ep is at Epstein Hitting on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Jim Tara as well. Thank you for listening, everybody. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you next week.